What happens when a founder walks away from paying enterprise customers to chase something completely unproven?
Daytona was doing something completely different before. When we invested, it was a cloud ID provider, and then you guys pivoted all of a sudden with this amazing pivot.
Ivan had built something that worked. Fortune 500 clients, six-figure deals, everything was stable.
We had a large pipeline, like everything was going good-ish.
Goodish. But what if good enough was the enemy of breakthrough? Ivan saw something others missed.
The agent can say, oh, I can see 5 things I can do right now. It does all 5. And then from all 5 outcomes, it can say, oh, 1, 3, 4 are good, the other are garbage, and let's try 5 more outcomes. And you get just like keeps branching.
AI agents that could work like the Marvel multiverse, trying every solution simultaneously. The demand was instant.
Our belief was that we had already hit. Every single one that finished the call said, oh, send me the API key.
No 7-month enterprise sales cycles, just pure hunger from the market.
The amount of support was insane. Almost like half the people replied, let's fucking go. Amazing that you pulled this off.
Even his investors were stunned. But for Ivan, this felt different than anything before.
I've done multiple companies. I've never actually felt pure PMF, which I think it is now.
Pure product market fit, the kind every founder dreams of but rarely experiences.
For us, it was like month 2. Has anyone ever done this? Like the 3 weeks in, we're like 67, whatever it was. Like you could see you're on the trajectory.
How did a moment of doubt about goodish become the fastest path to $1 million in infrastructure history? Every founder chases product market fit. Few ever find it. Ivan nailed it. Don't miss this conversation, only on the EUVC podcast.
Before we start the show, a quick note. If you're building or running a fund, you know it takes the right partners. At EUVC, we only work with sponsors we truly believe should be part of your tech stack. Please do take a moment to hear about them. And if you do, reach out, mention EUVC. It's the best way you can support what we do. Thank you so much. Starting off, HSBC Innovation Banking. If you're a founder, a scale-up, or a VC, you need a bank that actually understands your world. HSBC Innovation Banking backs innovation globally, from seed to IPO. And if you ask me, a strong banking partner like HSBC belongs in your stack. If your portfolio companies are scaling, they need infrastructure that won't slow them down. Google Cloud Starter Program offers $2,000 to $350,000 in credits, plus technical support to build better and faster. It's a key boost every fund should bring into their ecosystem, and oh my God, are we thankful to be partnering with them. Now, legal is a space you cannot lag on. Legal needs to move at the speed of venture. Goodwin's team has decades of experience with startups and funds. They're trusted at every stage from formation to exit. Goodwin definitely is a legal partner every serious manager should have in their stack. For Luxembourg-based VC, PE, and fund-of-fund managers, modern funds means going digital. Fundcraft gives you a full-service, digital native platform built for today's European managers. It's a must-have if you're scaling smart. So we all hear about the Middle East. How about you go there? From AI to deep tech to sovereign fund, SkyTech in Dubai is where global future of tech gets negotiated. It's not just a conference, it's where East meets West, capital meets innovation, and the bold set the agenda. If you're playing on the global stage, join us going to SkyTech this year. If you're gearing up for your next fundraise and want a placement agent who truly understands emerging managers, reach out to C Funds. They're a boutique placement agency that has helped GPs across Europe raise capital from top-tier LPs. We've been on the other side of the table here. They are actually good ones to work with. So I do urge you to go to cfunds.io to go and check them out. And hey, before you go, if you're looking to discover startups, raise capital, or connect with innovation leaders, do check out dealflow.eu, the EU-backed platform bridging founders, VCs, and corporates. There's no better place to find the startups that have received significant funding from the European innovation ecosystem.
This was their finest hour.
Tear down this wall.
It's more than just an alliance. This is a union of values.
Let's start acting.
This show is not investment advice, and the hosts of this episode may be invested in the funds and companies featured.
Welcome back, friends, to another episode of the EUVC Podcast. Hopefully, you already know that we are the place where we try and gather Europe's venture family to share their stories, insights, and lessons that push our ecosystem forward. But today, we're doing something somewhat different because we have Ivan with us, who's in the States right now, and he will share with us a bunch of stories, insights, and lessons that we can all use when thinking about AI and dev tools and developer communities. Our guest Ivan has lived the founder's journey across Toronto, Croatia, Infobip, Shift Conference, and now Daytona, bringing a truly global perspective on how Europe can lead DevTools and beyond. This conversation is about scaling communities, backing the right founders, and of course, I will spotlight my dear friend Enis Hulli from E2VC as much as I can. So Enis, first and foremost, could you tell us all why you think that we should have Ivan on the podcast today?
A lot of reasons. The latest reason being his huge pivot about 6-8 months ago and how much traction the company has gotten ever since. It has become the fastest growing infrastructure company ever, reaching 1 million in about 2 months, maybe less than 2 months, like 50 days. I'm not even sure. But beyond that, you've mentioned Ivan's background as well. He has a very firm grasp of the developer communities around the world. He's probably done developer meetups in more than the number of countries there are, probably more than 100 countries for sure. So I thought that it would make a lot of sense. And Andras, it's been a while since we did a podcast together. So I figured it's about time. Summer is over. We had our European summer. It's enough. We should do one.
I was just about to say that, but then I thought you're definitely going to talk about the European summer because you are too much in the States to not be affected by the affliction of dunking on Europe. I'll take that and say everyone I've been talking to all over summer have all been working wherever they are. So Ivan, let's just hear from you. Tell us a bit about your journey all the way up to today building Daytona.
Oh, there's so much, so I'll have to start somewhere and then you'll have to direct me where you want to go. First off, hi everyone, and thanks for having me. It's great to be here. I actually landed in Europe. I'm in Croatia right now. So I landed 4 days ago or 5 days ago back from SF. So I'm here as well, but unlike our friend here, you can see that I have not been enjoying the European summer. I've been hustling through the entire summer.
Man, I'm living the VC lifestyle.
You're living the VC life, that's it.
The founder is different, man. You're doing something meaningful for the world. You have a huge purpose.
Exactly. We have a purpose. So that's why we're doing it. So yeah, I've done a lot of things. We've done meetups in a lot of countries. I'm actually not sure how many. I should probably count that at some point, but we've been all over, obviously North America, Europe, but also Africa, both northern and south of Sahara, Southeast Asia, all over the world. We've done meetups. Adding on the comment that Enis said, but just I should count them, but there's a lot of countries that we've done this for sure. My entire career has been around infrastructure mostly and developers. So the first company we ever founded, I say we because a lot of the team members in Daytona, I've worked together with on other companies, either as co-founders or as team members, whatever. I think of the 15 people in Daytona now, 10 of them I've worked together in other companies. In aggregate, it's 84 years we worked together on a lot of things. So it's a very tight-knit group. Obviously, that can't last forever, but it's really cool to have these people go with you throughout the journey. So the first company was actually, this is the early 2000s, so I'm old, pretty old in startup land. And the first company was creating, data rooms and racking servers and things like that in the early 2000s. And so we did everything from physically screwing together servers, Dell, IBM inside of a rack, Cisco, routers and whatnot, Hyper-V, all those things. And when we figured out that doing that as a service is not the most impactful thing we can do with our lives, we actually sold that company. And then at that time created the very first browser-based IDE. So 2009. So it was very, very early. We had to build everything ourselves. Nothing really existed from the IDE itself. There was no VS Code. So we had to build our own orchestration layer, isolation layer, everything about the sandboxes, which we call now sandboxes, by the way. We didn't call them then. We called them dev boxes or whatever back then. And so we did that super early to some success. After that, did a developer conference, which Enis has been to and might be coming again, which scaled quite large. About 4,000 or 5,000 people come to the event. That got acquired by a competitor of Twilio. This company is out of Croatia. They do over 2 billion in annualized run rate right now. They acquired that and ran their dev experience department, created that completely, and then moved on to Daytona. So that's a bit of an intro, but basically everything has been focused on infrastructure in different forms, both as product and as services. And, selling or working with developers has always been a thing, I guess.
And then let's put Enis on the spot to tell everyone, what does Daytona do? And then you can rate him afterwards, Ivan.
Nice. So today, Daytona is an AI infrastructure provider. If you want to run your AI agents anywhere, it lets you run your AI agents anywhere on bare metal. Does that make sense? Did I make sense? Is this correct, Ivan?
It is correct, but there's more. So yes, some people do that, and it's like some people do that. So basically, what Daytona is the computer for agent. So what that means is all of us are probably on like a MacBook or a Windows laptop right now, or something like that. And so we, as humans, which are AGI essentially, have to interact with computers to be able to do certain tasks, right? Agents, even though they are virtual and we think of them as being inside of our computers, like inside of ChatGPT or whatever, they are not computers themselves, or they do not have access to computers. So if they need to analyze some data, clone a GitHub repository, use an application, use a web browser, whatever it may be, like they actually need a computer to get that done. And so Daytona basically enables an agent to have access to these computers. Sometimes some people actually run the agent in the computer itself. So like they'll put the agent inside as well. So basically what Daytona does, it is a isolated sandbox. We call it isolated sandbox, but essentially a computer that is created specifically for agents. So we use a keyboard, a mouse, and a screen to interact with our computers. Agents use machine interfaces. Most of the time are APIs. So we basically have APIs for everything, to define the size of the machine, to turn it on, turn it off, to archive it. And like your Mac, or Windows, it comes preloaded with a bunch of applications. So do our machines. So our machines come preloaded with like a file explorer, a terminal, a Git client, all these things with API endpoints exposed directly to the agent. So the agent doesn't have to waste time parsing like terminal output that a human would read, but rather it gets it in a very neat and specific way. So an example would be if it needs to run a terminal command, the agent would just invoke the terminal, send a plain text command, get a plain text response, uses less time, less context window, less tokens, and higher probability of outcomes. And so we do have, for the most part, agents are run outside of the machines itself. But so Enis actually wasn't wrong, we do have people that run the agents inside the sandbox as well. I can give you an example of that, but I just wanted to tell Enis he was like half right. He was not wrong. We'll say that. He's not wrong.
We have a lot of our portfolio companies use Daytona, by the way. I think one of the use cases was that's right. But Daytona was doing something completely different before. When we invested, it was a cloud ID provider. And then you guys pivoted all of a sudden with this amazing pivot. I think, Andreas, I think it makes sense to hone into that. Like, what were the reasons for the pivot? Because Daytona 1.0 had customers, had revenue, was going for enterprise companies. But then 3 months in, Ivan was like, I'm not feeling the push as much or pull from the market as much as I want to. So I want to, rethink the whole business that I'm in, where we can use our core technical capabilities to build something different that would, gain more steam. And then came Daytona 2.0.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to jump into that. So Daytona 1.0, yeah, we were serving enterprises. We had very, very large companies. Like the very first company that we had was a Fortune 500 company. Out of the gate, like we haven't even incorporated, we had this customer, right? And so basically what we did was we helped these. So I'll take it back. So if you work at any of the large tech companies, so like Meta or like Google or like Palantir or whatever, as a developer, everything's automated for you. Just log in, you hit a button, everything works. If you work at any other company in the world, no matter if it's a Fortune 500, 5,000 or some random startup, to get your dev environment up and running, it is a significant task. Like it'll take you anywhere from hours to days, sometimes weeks to get it up. And this is for every new project you're on. And sometimes if you want to switch between projects, you have to do this thing. It is very much a mess. On top of that, there is security, which is quite interesting for these large enterprises, where not only is it complex to set up, but they'll make you work on a remote machine because everything has to be inside of a gated firewall or whatever. And that makes it even more unbearable for a human to use these services, because they're essentially using it through a remote desktop, like essentially screen sharing, which is a terrible experience. So not only is it like hard and takes long to set up, it's also pretty bad experience as a developer. And so what Daytona did was made it possible for any enterprise to have their engineers click one button and everything set up. But moreover, that these setups will be in a secure place behind the firewall, but the developer could use their local editor if they wanted to. There's always a cloud if they wanted, but they could use the local one. And so they had to feel as if they were working locally, but everything was securely where the enterprise wanted it. And so that is what we started out doing. And we had, I think it was like 15-ish customers. And these are enterprise customers, right? So these are like 5-figure, 6-figure deals. We had a few of them that were already expanding. We had a large pipeline. Like everything was going good-ish. And the real breakthrough was end of last year when we were, I was actually tinkering around with this product called Open Devon at the time, now called OpenHens. So it was an open source version of Cognition's Devon. And to get it up and running, you had to install it on your own machine. There's like a Docker container and some scripts you had to run. It wasn't super complex, but it wasn't trivial by any means. And I'm like, oh, well, we automate dev environments for work.
I totally forgot about that. There was a phase in between where you were trying to make the most AI Copilot native IDE, and you were trying to push the product into that direction. And then I guess that's like,
yeah, we were trying to figure out exactly. So we had a customer that used the browser Daytona as a runtime, then the browser-based IDE, then continue.dev as the Copilot. So continue.dev is an open source version of Microsoft's Copilot, kind of like Cursor, but just a plugin. And so we put all those things together and we're like, oh, what else can we do? And we're looking at these fully, like, I'm not going to say vibe coding because I don't think Devon falls into that, but basically autonomous coding agents. And so how do you get that up and running? Because an autonomous coding agent needs a runtime or a sandbox or a machine for every single repository it's going to clone. And then we tried to use Daytona 1.0 to get that up and running, and we did. And some even more sophisticated customers came up to us as like, oh, we need these runtimes for our autonomous agents. And we're like, oh, here's Daytona 1.0. Try it out. And there's some people that we know together, we won't mention them now. It's like that try to use it and they're like, oh, this doesn't really work well. This is not perfect. And we're like, oh, what's not perfect? Like, what is it? And I get this question all the time, especially from investors or even like users, like, oh, what's the difference between a runtime for a human and an AI agent? Isn't that like the same thing? And it's like, no, it's really not the same thing. And as we started, like at that time, working with customers, we started seeing how different the product roadmap was and how different the use cases were for humans and for agents, like specifically what they need. I'll give you just like high level examples is like one, a dev environment to spin up for a human. And if you look at any product, it's usually plus 30 seconds. So it's like 30 seconds to a minute, 2 minutes, depending on what it is. You can cache them, make them a bit faster, but no one dies for 30 seconds. Like it's fine. Like that's what we expected. In interactive mode, like think ChatGPT, if you have to wait for 30 seconds for it to boot up a machine, you're going to be like, what the hell is this? It's like, I'm not waiting 30 seconds for this. Like you want this stuff instantaneous. Moreover, agents can do more things at the same time. So it's like a human will, the way we solve problems is in a series. So it's like we try to solve a problem, we get to a solution, good or bad. And like, if it's bad, we'll like go back and then do it again. We'll go back and do it again until we get an acceptable solution. An agent can do that, but an agent can be also like, oh, I'll just try all the solutions at the same time. So think like Marvel multiverse of possibilities. Like the agent can say, oh, I can see 5 things I can do right now. It does all 5. And then from all 5 outcomes, it can say, oh, 1, 3, 4 are good, the other are garbage, and let's try 5 more outcomes. And you get just, it keeps branching till infinity, till it basically gets to the required outcome that it wants. And there's no infrastructure that provides that right now. And the last thing, which I think actually is the most important, is machines really need different interfaces. So they can, and you have people using computer use and browser use, and we offer that as well. But that is not the optimal way for an agent to work, right? If it has to, it will. So think if there's some like old school health application or hospital, whatever it may be, that like you can think of it built out in Visual Studio or Visual Basic or whatever that's directly connected to the database, there's no API, then the agent has to use a computer use to use that. And that's an acceptable trade-off. But if it doesn't, if there's an underlying API, you want it to use that, right? And so how do you make all the tools and all the things that an agent can use through that? Plus, where does an agent, because agents don't have the ability as humans to do everything. So if agents using Daytona break or they have to fall back to a human, that is, I believe, an error on our part. And that's an opportunity for a new feature and or product. Like, can you give the agent the ability to finish the end-to-end task that it's set out to do? So I sort of digressed with the conversation, but as we got into this, we decided basically it was end of January where we're like, this is a whole new product, a whole new category. No one owns the category. It is a net new product. So it's like, no one even knows what is needed in here. We're all figuring it out together. And the market opportunity is insane. Like if we got every enterprise user in the world, huge market, great, awesome. Enis would be happy. He'd make back his investment. But agents, like the number of agents in the world are like the number of humans to the power of n. Like, I don't know how big it is, but just like amazing. And so just getting a fraction of that use base is larger than anything we've ever seen. And it's probably on the larger side of what we expect it to be. So with that, we're like, you know what? Let's go out and win this one, because everything is about timing. And I've had multiple companies before. And right now, the infrastructure providers that own the space. There are going to be a pop at some point where like the bubble bursts and whatnot. But if we've seen with every of these sort of waves, the fundamental infrastructure providers that have existed, they never die. Like they can be super successful or they could be quote unquote mediocre successful. We're talking still public companies, tens of billions of dollars of worth, and you can't get rid of them just because they power everything there. And so it's like, this is where we're going. Obviously not to be just one that sort of exists, but rather win. But regardless, it is a market that we saw was a great opportunity for us.
And obviously market is much more deeper and much more newly emerging. It's a blue ocean space. Your trips to SF and you spending time in SF, how did that shape you and shape your understanding of the problem definition? Because I feel like this was a very SF native problem when you were doing that pivot, say, 8-10 months ago.
So the pivot was actually February. So how much is it? How many months ago? 7?
Not much.
7 months. 6. Yeah, there you go. So time flies. 6, a little more than 6. But anyway, we actually did that as a plan. So when we decided that we were pivoting from enterprise human engineers to AI agents. So when we think of like users of Daytona, we think about companies. So we think of ourselves as like B2B2C. Basically, I'll give you examples. These are not our customers, but just examples of a autonomous AI agent. So you have like Harvey or Lovable or Cognition, or I should say Devin, sorry. Now Airtable. So these are all products that have end users that are humans, but the product itself is an agent, and that agent requires a runtime to execute on its work. And the thing I kept thinking about is, if we want to win at this market, where is the highest concentration of customers or people building that? And the highest concentration is San Francisco by large. The other thing that we were thinking about quite a bit in my mind was, I always remember the story, which I've actually confirmed is true. Dylan, the CEO of Figma, the way that he acquired customers was he literally hung out of all the designers in like Airbnb and all these startups in SF. Similar to that, Jeff from Twilio, because I worked for a competitor of Twilio for a long time, not the same story, but basically they became the infra provider for all the startups when they had started in Silicon Valley vibe. Figma is not an infra provider, but it's still a tool that's used. The thing that I remember about that is when you try both those companies, when they own the core mindshare, which is in Silicon Valley / San Francisco, that sort of drips over to the rest of the world. Like you can push so much marketing spend from the outward in, like from Istanbul, from Croatia, from Paris, from London. It is so much harder. You're going against the market when you're selling outward into San Francisco. When you're going from San Francisco outwards, it just has a natural flow to it. And it's really, really hard. And I've never seen, I don't know if anyone can correct me, but I don't know of a global, consumer, but this is a dev tool, which is enterprise, but it's still an end user that uses it, like a human developer uses it, that started or that continued to be outside of that core region and has won someone that was inside that core region. Like I can't recall, I could be wrong, but I can't recall any of them. And so in our mind is like, we have to go. And like, we are leaving. And the day we decided to do that, we presented it to the team and we got plane tickets for everyone. Like not everyone moved that same day, but I've been almost from February, almost to yesterday, the entire year in San Francisco, back and forth a bit, but I've been there. And there's always been team members going back and forth. Now we're opening a full-time office. Some of the people will be moving and hiring net new people there. But just from the go-to-market, the acquisition of the customers, and just the mind share, there's no other place than San Francisco. And on your note, like we already understood this, but for our team, it's always harder for the team to pivot, and actually getting them in SF, going to these meetups and talking to these people, they're like, oh shit, like this actually makes sense. And so it was actually quite useful for the team to get them there multiple times this year.
When I landed in SF, this was March last year, and then we obviously had lunch together. I landed in and I was in an Uber, and I was talking to the driver randomly about venture capital, how the business model works, our financial model, outlier returns, etc. And then I bumped into one of Daytona's billboards. There was a huge Daytona billboard, and that throughout the city, I saw like, I don't know, maybe 10 Daytona billboards. And you guys had just pivoted back then. I mean, the product was ready-ish. I'm not even sure if it was.
It wasn't
ready.
live. It wasn't even live.
It wasn't live. Was that like a demand test for you? Were you like, I have to accelerate timing. The opportunity cost is way too high. Accelerating to check whether there's actual demand or not to shorten that feedback loop. Why don't I just put 10 billboards all around the city?
So actually our belief was that we had already hit like we hadn't launched, but we believed that the market existed just because of the feedback that we had gotten. So just on a caveat, before we had pivoted, we had like 20, 22, 21, 22 like customer conversations, whatever. And every single one that finished the call said, oh, send me the API key. And we'd be like, okay, sure. And of course you forget to send the API key because you have other things to do. They would literally, almost every single one of us pinged us the next day, where's my goddamn API key? I was like, oh shit, like what is this? Like no one's ever asked me. And coming from like enterprise sales where it's like 7 calls across 3 months to get like a document, which is not like, not a contract, but what it's called, POW or whatever, to get it sort of up and running, like what the hell is going on here? This is interesting. So in our mind, we took the bet that we were already right, like that the market already existed. And there were some other players that had just started. There were some other companies that had some adjacent products. And we so strongly believed, we're like, okay, we have to get awareness now, even though the product isn't out. Like the product will come out in 2 months or 3 months, but we have to get awareness ready. Because the way awareness works, especially with these infra companies, it's not like, oh, I see this and I go do it today. It's like, oh, I see, what the hell is this? Then maybe I check up on it. Then someone tells me, and then I actually need to integrate it, which is like 2-3 months down the road. So we already like foresaw that timeline and we're like, let's get it out right away. And I'm not joking. It was so funny. One of our employees had just landed on SFO and took an Uber and was talking to the Uber driver, first time in the US. Like guy's never been to the US. And he's driving and they literally stop on a light. And the Uber driver is like, and there's like so many tech companies, like these goddamn Daytona guys are everywhere. Like the Uber driver is telling him and he's laughing because he's like, he works for that company. So when you're at the point that the Uber driver knows who you are, I think that's quite good. And again, we've only done these in San Francisco on purpose because like billboards, I don't know how to measure the effect of the return on investment. And I would never do them in Paris or London or anywhere else because it's just like, it'll just get lost. But because everyone in SF is either working on, married to, dating, aunt or uncle of someone building an AI agent, is like, we want everyone to know. So they say, oh, we're using this in Daytona. It's like, oh, I know what that is. Like, even if they don't know, I want them to know. And that's sort of the idea for us, sort of saturating the mind share in that place.
Tell me a bit about, and this is for both of you, VC behavior support during a pivot. Like, what has been helpful? What has been absolutely not helpful?
He didn't tell us. He told us after the pivot.
Yeah. So I actually,
by the way, we just pivoted like 3 months ago.
To be clear, if you look at your investor updates, I hint on them the first few, like 3 months before. I start like preparing them. It's like, oh, we're trying this thing, this collab with AI, this collab with a cloud ID, this collab, like,
you did a hackathon. So he did a hackathon. And then he was also mentioning that one of the outputs of the hackathon was actually a good idea. So why not spend some time, building that?
Yeah. So I did, because I was very conscious, like self-conscious of this pivot. And I did. So we, Upfront Ventures, which is on our board, like they knew, like we sort of, I felt the obligation to tell them, like they're on the board, like we're doing this thing. What do you guys think? They were like, okay, sure. Like we explained it and they're like, okay, this makes sense. But I have to tell you, and so we have a bunch of angels on our cap table. Like we have a bunch. It's like through an SVB mostly. But when I shot it out, the amount of support was insane. And I was like, oh shit, like almost like half the people replied. So like 30 emails I get back. Enis was one of them. And they're like, go fucking go. Like, let's fucking go. Amazing that you pulled this off. I'm like, okay, I should have done this sooner. Like I didn't sleep for like 2 weeks trying to figure out, should we do this or not? So I didn't seek support. I was more like getting the terrain sort of ready. But once we did it, it ended up being really, really, people were really supportive even before we've got proof points that it makes sense. Like the proof points came, 2 months ago or something like that? Like that's when the proof points came. But before that, everyone was quite supportive of that, which is an interesting dynamic. I feel that the more I think about the world in general, and this is like my personal observation, is like, the world appreciates you for having, I don't know what the lack of a term is, like courage or balls, like whatever you want to say. Like, I'm not trying to say it's like, it's not a male thing, it can be male, female, doesn't matter. It's just like to have conviction. And that's why you sort of see, I think, and this is my breakdown of like, people celebrate criminals. We can say whatever we want. Like there's a ton of movies about criminals. Like everyone watches it. Like it is a thing. And everyone that has the gall, maybe there's a better, to like try something, it doesn't matter on what side of the legal framework or what you're thinking about. It's like, if you have the gall to try something audacious, people respect that. It's insane. Like, it's very hard to internalize personally, but like, so even Fire Festival, which I used to run conferences, so watching that was terrifying to me, because we all think we're fakes until that actually happens and you actually do the conference. And so like the Fire Festival, just because he had the gall to like invite, you know, the top influencers, the top supermodels, do it on Pablo Escobar's Island. There's like 2 documentaries about the guy, right? He ended up in jail. He's doing another thing. Fine. But, you know, WeWork, like, you know, everyone, Adam Newman just raising new fund. Like, congrats to him. Like, just having the gall to do something for better or worse, like people actually respect. And I might have done wrong examples here, and hopefully no one cites me on saying like you have to do negative things. That's not what I'm trying to say. That's not what I'm trying to say at all.
Everyone's aspiring to these people.
Yeah, no. But I'm like, so like you look at, you know, Musk, who just through tries, like has the gall to say, oh, I'm gonna make a rocket ship and we're gonna like reuse that and go to Mars. Like, you have to have a gall to do that. Like, who gives you the right to say that? Like, how do you know nothing out of this, like, right? So it works in any dimension. I feel that we as society respect anyone that like has the gall to do that, which is a quite interesting, and it's hard when you're the one that has to do that. But once you do it, like, people very much do respect that.
I think it's really the type of people you surround yourself with. But in our ecosystem, if you're surrounding yourself with the right type of people, 95% of what you're saying is correct. Whether that is true for the general public, I'm not sure, because people do like to, you know, when you fall down, people do like to hit you, you know, it's fun.
They do, but it's not, it doesn't exclude it, because you still have people watching all the movies of like all that. Like, you have everyone watching Wolf of Wall Street and all the 5 Steve Jobs movies. Like, I don't know how many Steve Jobs, there's like a ton of them, right? And so like, it doesn't matter on what side. Just like if you went out and said, I'm going to do something super crazy and audacious, everyone's like, oh, wants to watch this. Of course. If Jeff Bezos lost all his money, everyone would spit on him right now. Like, I mean, everybody, in like the sense of general population of people. But like, I think that doesn't exclude each other of being an entertaining thing. I don't know, but yeah.
Honestly, I think that short form social media, TikTok, shows very clearly what you're describing, because it's almost people doing audacious things in some type of microcosm. Going to go in my kitchen, I'm going to do something incredibly stupid, and then that goes viral because we all love to see it. And I think it is true on a big scale and low scale. And then I actually thought a bit the opposite when you were about to talk about your angels and how they reacted. But it goes to show this importance around the sophistication of angels that you have. When I say in sophistication, it's in venture. It's in understanding what venture is. Your pivot story and the market that you went for will make an angel that is happy to see you go for the moon, and just maybe will fail completely. I'm perfectly all right with it. I made 50 other bets last year. But if you have an angel, which we unfortunately have too many of in Europe, especially, where they have 5 bets, they care enormously.
A lot.
And they're like,
yeah.
No, work life. Like, you have real revenue. Don't fuck it up now. And here I'm being a bit facetious as well, but I do think I think there's something very important there for anyone listening in, that like it takes that wide portfolio to be able to wish for every one of your founders to just run at the biggest opportunity the fastest they can. I'd love to ask you, Ivan, because now you've very much laid out how you've caught lightning in a bottle. The question is then, what have you done these last 6 months? Because when the Uber drivers know you and they all almost ask you to give, together with the license or with the payment details, they also ask you for your API key. What do you then do? How do you make the company ready? What are the first things that you got to get right? What have you maybe gotten wrong that you think could have been done differently? Whereas funding in all of this?
The thing that we all get caught, I mean, I don't think it's all, like, I used to get caught up with is all the things around the company. Is like, oh, what is the brand? What is the logo? What is this? Like, what is the structure? What is like all that all means nothing. That's all useless at this point in time, right? It is, can you make, it sounds like very cliche, Paul Graham's make something people want, but it's like, I've done multiple companies. I've never actually felt pure PMF, which I think it is now. And I think I haven't, like, because I've never had it before, and I think I have it now, right? Where the point is that you have so much work and so much customers and so much demand that you just can't finish the day. Like the day ends and just you don't sleep, no one sleeps. My CTO is gonna die. I think he sleeps like 4 hours a day or something like that. Like
Andreas, yesterday I was speaking to Ivan. I was like, hey, like let's do a catch-up call. We haven't spoken for a while. And he was like, we're having the podcast tomorrow, no? Like that's our catch-up call.
Yeah, that's our catch-up call. Although we can't talk about a lot of things, there's a lot of interesting things to talk about. It's insane to be able to get that thing. And so when you get that, there's a lot of things you have to do. So yeah, we had this great idea when we started even Daytona. We had like this brand, the brand guidelines, design of the web, construction of the team. We had like cycles of releases. Everything was as you should be a company. Daytona 2.0 has nothing, like none of this. Like we don't have official releases. We push out every day or every other day as soon as you like get a chance to. You feel like internally things are falling apart. Sometimes there's like we sometimes have outages because of like so much the usage that we didn't plan on having that because someone just like fired up 50,000 of these sandboxes instead of the average 10, which they usually do. And you have like customers coming in and then they have requests and requirements and you're trying to solve all these things. And so what you're trying to do basically is every single day, make sure that more people are coming in at the same pace, which my CTO wants to shoot me because of this, because I'm still doing demand gen things to get people in, but you have to make sure that nothing breaks at the same time. But you also don't want to over-architect things because I've done that and we've done that historically where you're making this massive product for like massive usage and then no one shows up, right? So it is basically how quickly can you make that small thing that people want, which I really didn't understand. That is basically the thesis of YC and those companies at YC. You often see, and we work with a lot of these companies where like the thing that they created is so thin. I'm like, oh, but it's so thin. It is because they're just trying to figure out what is the key problem they're trying to solve. The depth will come later. They'll solve that as you go. And I think that's probably the most right way to build out these companies, especially in that it's always been fast moving, but this one's insanely fast. Like the AI boom is like so fast. And so if you haven't hit any type of PMF, like after 3-4 months, just like kill whatever you're doing and like move on to the next thing. It's hard to do that, but you should. And sorry, I didn't answer your question exactly, but basically.
No, well, but actually, Ivan, let's stay on that, and then we go to the scaling part afterwards and how to get the organization and everything ready. But I would just love to ask Enis to react a bit to what you said, because
sure,
hopefully, being an investor, he has seen other people catch lightning in a bottle and can then maybe elaborate a bit on the pattern here.
You think you do, and now you just realize you haven't. There's always something that gains even more. So we had 3 unicorns in our portfolio in Fund 1. Obviously, all of them grew super fast. You would see 3x year-over-year growth for 5-6 years straight, and then that gets you to almost 100 million ARR, and then makes you a unicorn. But then with AI, that completely reshaped our thinking. Even in our portfolio, Fall AI went from $0 to $100 million in ARR in 15 months. I vividly remember when they signed their first customer. It was end of Q1 2024, and now they're at $100 million in ARR. So you think you know how strong product market fit looks like, and then something even stronger comes around. I'm like, oh yeah, now I understand what fast means. But a lot of the founders, just like what Ivan mentioned, they think they have product market fit when they don't. And then they try to do these brute force sales, and then company for initially turns into more of a linear progression, and then has almost like a diminishing or an asymptote where growth stalls, and you end up with companies with a couple $1 million in ARR. We've seen a lot of those in our portfolio as well. So what Ivan mentioned in terms of that iterative mindset, understanding when there's a pull from the market and then doubling down as you feel the pull, but not doubling down when there's no pull, instead trying to iterate around the business levers, definitely makes sense. That's why I see mantra works, especially in AI, more so in AI.
No, for sure. And it's more, I was talking to my CTO the other day. It's more like a feel. There's metrics, I can share metrics, and I've shared with our investors, but it's just like a feel. Every single day that you have 5 new customers are pinging you on Slack, then you have 5 new emails. People are signing. You have no idea where all this stuff is coming from. And then something breaks and then 10 people call you because it's broken. Well, that means that someone's actually using your thing, right? Because otherwise, if they weren't using it, no one would call you, right? So there's all these things happening, and they're happening at the same time. And then you look at metrics and they're good, they're great. But the feel is even more that that is happening right now. So yeah. So what we're trying to do at the same time is add gas to the fire, but also make sure that you can contain the fire or generate revenue or serve those people. Yeah.
I was going to ask, fastest company to reach 1 million ARR. How did you come up with that? What does that mean? Did you go company by company and looked when they reached 1 million? And
yeah. So for us, it was month 2. we're like, oh, it's like 80-ish, whatever, 80. It ended up at 84, but like the 3 weeks in, we're like, we're like at 67, whatever it was. Like you could see her on the trajectory. And I remember the companies we did before, like, you know how long it takes to get a million ARR? Like it took a long time to get there. I'm like, shit, this is in 2 months. Has anyone ever done this? And you start researching, and obviously there's not a lot of exact data. And most people look at the 0 to 100 million, and which is, I completely respect that. And also I respect that 0 to 1 million is not as impressive as it was 0 to 100. I get it. But also as a founder, one of your jobs and to keep top of people's mind is like, what things can you push out to the market so that people continuously think about you, right? And that's just one of them. And then I started researching this, and there's not exact data, but I do have like quotes or citations of where I pulled this out, and you have like rough ideas. And so you have like Guillermo of Vercel saying, oh, we started monetizing 18 months ago and we just passed like 1 million or whatever. So they're not exact dates, but you get like approximately where that is, right? And then you have like Cloudflares and all these other companies. You can sort of like work back, and then you have like public investor updates of Twilio when they're at 750,000, and that was whatever X months in. It wasn't 2, right? It was like 10 or 12 or whatever. I forgot the number right now. But basically they're all, and when you look at all the companies, especially at infra companies, it basically starts at 12 months. Like at 12 months is where you start getting close to the million ARR, and then it goes out to like 36 months. The reason the examples that were closer was AWS, us, and I forgot which other company was closer to here, but AWS was super fast. Similarly, because it was Amazon, because they built it internally, and because they already had internal customers that were trying it. And then when they opened the doors, it just basically like started right away. And even for them, it took them like 3-ish months to get there from the data that I had found, right? And so the reason is like, oh, well, we seem pretty fast. And the reason is because infra, in general, the way infra works, unlike consumer, you can think of like Lovable, fastest company of all time, is that you guys will come to Lovable, swipe a credit card, same day, revenue comes in same day. For infra, so the Twilios, the Stripes, the us, the AWS, whatever, is like, oh, cool, I know this exists. Okay, I know what this is. Then I have a use case. Then I build a use case. Then I launch the product. Then users come in. So you have like these steps. And that's why we did the billboards in advance, because we were already cognizant of these steps that happen. And then can we already skip over these steps before the product is launched? And so that's the reason we sort of like announced that. And we did screenshots of our data, because like today, everyone's the fastest growing company and all the graphs are like without numbers. They're just graphs. And like, okay, we might as well like be more authentic with this and actually shoot out screenshots so people can say that. And people did respect that. There were some people that hated on it, and then like, there's an actual screenshot, and they're like, okay, done. Respect, we're out. Good for you. And that, I mean, obviously now we have to get to the 10 million and to the 100 million and whatnot.
Yeah, now we're all waiting that now. And like, if you extrapolate going to 1 million in 2 months, and with all the thick pipeline that you have, like 6 months in, a year in, how would the ARR look like? I mean, now there's built up expectation.
Yeah, but so like just on expectation wise, it's like our plan was to be like 3 million-ish end of year originally, and it's way.
But now you're there probably like end of August.
Yeah. So I did not say end of August. Do not expect that in the investor update. But yes, like it's definitely sooner than we expected for sure.
And then this is the perfect pivot, obviously, to then talk about how do you make the company and everything ready to be able to actually accommodate this scale. Because it's not as simple. It's one thing to catch the genie. Now you got to
harness it. You have to harness it. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things that you have to do. And so one thing people think about always is throwing headcount on that, which true, you have to add people. But also if you add too much headcount, then it breaks up the team. You hire less higher quality. There's like all these things that you have to figure out what to do and what is the most impactful and slow. I actually think about slow way of hiring people, because you don't want to overhire. Like the easiest thing you do is hire 50 people, easiest, quote unquote, right? But like, what is the type of work? What is the culture? And I don't like the word cultural specifically. I feel there's like a bad connotation to that now. But basically, when you come in any company, there's a vibe, sort of like how people work, right? And so our vibe, and so there was like, I don't know, last week, there was like a huge, I should say, there's a huge interruption in work. There's like 2 really large customers just came in and overloaded the system. And I was in the US, most of the team was in Europe. I had woken up, gone to sleep, woken up. They were awake the entire time, like the engineering team, all the time. No one was asked. There was no like, hey, can you please stay awake to solve this problem? They just like piled through. Like, I think they took like 2-hour stints of naps or whatever to survive, but no one asked them to do it, right? And so if something is needed to do, and that's the way we, work, there's no question that you will or will not. And we all have our own like jobs and scopes of jobs, and everyone takes care of those. And so that is how we get things. Like, it's just one example, but like, can you hire more people like that? The same thing with like flying. So I was in Europe 2 weeks ago. I had to be in a meeting in San Francisco 2 p.m. the next day. I was there 2 p.m. the next day, like literally. That's like it's 2 flights. It's across the world. 2 p.m. the next day I'm there. And everyone else, like, depending on what your job is, you will be there where you need to do. And no one's sort of asked to do that. It's like, just like, if it is understood, then it's understood that we have to do that. And so like, back to your question, is like, what are the things you have to do? Obviously, one of the things we have to do is get the right people in the right places that are literally breaking to be able to harness that genie, but make sure we hire them in respect to what is needed. So on the GDM side is like, we have a part-time head of compliance, probably we have the full-time. It's interesting, especially when you get to larger customers, like how much compliance and docs you have to go through with them. It's not just having SOC 2, it's like all these security questionnaires and all these things you have to, jump holes through. And you literally have to have a person to run this. Otherwise, I have to run this instead of doing other things. And continuously, we do a lot of white glove support. People say about white glove support. I'm not sure if they all do that. I haven't experienced it. But for us, every sophisticated user, sophisticated means it could be a large or small customer, but they have a high probability of usage. Because in infrastructure, we have a large power law like in VC. So what we have to do as a company is make sure we get the fast growing companies, because those are the ones that will help us grow. That's how we got to 1 million. And if we get the right 2 companies, we're at 10 million, like 2, not 100 companies, right? And so we have to make sure we're in these companies. And so the way you make sure they get in is as soon as they're interested, they're in a Slack channel with the entire team. Obviously, one person owns that, but like every question, every bump, every feel, everything they get, there's a person on the end of that just flying to them. You can use AI for support. Obviously, we can help. You can do a lot of things, but making sure that they get from, we want to use your product, to be fully onboarded and integrated with 0 bumps, or at least every bump is taken care of, goes a very, very long way. I read a book, and I'm sorry, I feel like I haven't given you guys a chance to talk. Just one thing is, since I ran a conference, I read all the books I could find about conferences, and there's not a lot. There's books about experiences, theater, and what are the Disneylands of the world? What are they called? These
theme parks?
Adventure
theme parks. Yeah, theme parks, right? They all are part of this experience economy. And the thing that a lot of the key lessons I learned through that is every experience can be into a positive. Not even every, but every bad experience can be a net positive experience. Like if a shitty experience, so that example is like an airline, right? Your flight is late or it's canceled, whatever. If before they come, the person that has a canceled flight comes to you, that you come to them and say, you know what? We're sorry, it's canceled because of this or this. The next flight is at this time. We have booked you a hotel, a whatever, blah, 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 and you have the next flight. These people are not only not angry, they will actually positively remark that airline. Because even though their timelines are missed, everything is missed, the way that you presented a solution to the problem before they got the opportunity to get mad at you, because we're all human. They're like, these guys appreciate me. These people appreciate me. They solved the entire problem. There's nothing for me to do now. I can't get mad because there's like a car waiting for me to take me to whatever hotel. I have dinner and they'll drive me back and they'll compensate me for all these things. You're like, this is great, right? These are the things that you do. And I remember there was the one about Disneyland, and I haven't been actually to the hotel in Disneyland. I don't, can reference check this, is that there's supposedly this red phone, which calls room service right away. And they'll like magically give you whatever, like ice cream sundaes for the kids or whatever it is. And just pick it up as like the bat phone. And like you right away get connected. There's no wait. They say, what do you need? And they serve it right away. And it's like these experiential things, people don't think about this much in products because products are not supposed to have experience with people. But if you do these things, you can win a lot. And like we're a startup, we're an infrastructure company. There's issues, obviously. But if you get ahead of all these issues and make sure you're ahead of that, all of them become net positive things. And I want to keep doing that for as long as I can.
And I want to ask you, is there something here on the growth journey, the getting ready to scale or actually starting to scale part that you'd love to ask Ivan about?
I heard this phrase yesterday and I loved it. It's called seat strapping. it's companies raising seed, not raising an A or a B, and then becoming unicorns. And apparently it became a term in and of itself. And with AI and with the growth that Daytona has seen, or companies like Daytona, Founder, a bunch of examples like that, you can seed strap your way towards a unicorn, right? And then obviously what that means for Series A, B, C, VCs is tough game. And then obviously they want to go, they want to do this shift left movement as to doing more pre-seed investments. And then that means for us is obviously even fiercer competition. But from your perspective, as Daytona, and I'm looking at your margins, your growth, do you think you're in a trajectory like that? Or do you think some companies are in such a trajectory where they would raise, 3, 4, 5, 6, up to 10 million and then go the unicorn route?
I mean, there's a lot of ways to think about this. And I see like raising pre-seed and seed seems so easy right now in hindsight. Like I could raise a pre-seed tomorrow for my next company, like easy. Like not even me, like I could teach someone to do that. Like you just talk to people all day. There's so many ways to do it. Like
we only had one call, no? We only had one call.
Yeah, I think so. Just one. We had 2 calls. We had
Okay,
met. I met with Dunya, and then there was a call, and that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But you can do so many routes. Like as for a pre-seed, let's say a pre-seed. I mean, like this is like a 2, 3, 4 million thing. Like that is a seed. Usually that could be a seed as well. And to do that, you can do a 1 multi-stage. So Andreessen can write your check, Sequoia can write your check, Enis can write your check, or it could be like a couple of pre-seed funds. Like
it's the first time someone mentioned my name among those.
Yeah. I'm trying. I'm trying. And you could do that, but you can also do
I think you were the counter example.
It's still in the same. It's still in the same sentence. It's still in the same lines. So don't take it away from him. And you can also just like do a party round where you can just like do a bunch of angels. There are so many angels that will write like $20,000, $50,000, $100,000 checks, and you'll get your number. So there's so many ways to get to that initial amount and what you need. The interesting dichotomy of AI right now is that on one side you have people saying, "Oh, you'll never need to raise money because AI automates everything." On the other side, like it has never been more expensive. Like the cost of everything is so high, and so you're raising more. So there is both of that. But to your specific question, like potentially yes, and we think about this as well. And so I've talked to a partner to almost every VC fund in San Francisco. I think like if someone hasn't, like they can reach out. But I think I've talked to a partner from every single one. The thing for us is when we talk to them, especially since in the position we are at without exposing too much, is like the potential next round that we would do is an A. And so if we do an A, it has to be on the terms that we want with the partner that we want. Otherwise, we're not going to do it, at least now. The reason is we have enough cash from our investors, among them Enis here, in the bank account, and revenue is growing at a pace that is pretty good, pretty insane. And our gross profit margins are there. So we're already, as far as COGS are concerned, like we're already in the positive, like we're already making that money in. And so we're in the negative for the employees that we hire. And I assume in the next 6 months, we can already be cash flow positive or neutral if we decided to do that. Now, you also might want to grow faster. There's competitors, there's other things you want to do there. So you have to think about it, but I would bet you that there will be more and more of these, as you call them, what was the word? Seed strapping.
Seed strappers? It's like bootstrapping, but seed strapping, yeah.
And I don't know where that puts for investors as well, because it depends on where you get liquidity later on. The thing that's interesting for me and the way I think about investors always is, why are public companies more interesting to people than bootstrap companies? Even if the owners, the founders get even the similar. So you have like bootstrap companies that make $10 million a year or whatever it is. And so over the course of 10 years, they'll make $100 million. And so getting $100 million is not trivial as a founder still, like even as an exit, you personally all the way down, right? And the reason I think that this is true is that the vested interest of a large number of people in the company push that to higher. So the thing is, like, if I raise a new round, my lawyers love it, right? Like they love it because they get to charge me more, right? Then there's more investors in there. And then I have to like hire external services. Like we have a bunch of external services. And the bigger I get, the more external services I have to pay for, right? And then they all have a vested interest that like Daytona is not successful. Now, like the billboard companies have a vested interest that I'm successful because if not us, but someone else. And then as you grow and go, and then when you're public, then the retail investors outside of the the BlackRocks, the KKRs and whatever also have a vested interest of you doing well. And then all of these sort of like push you upwards faster than if you were bootstrapped. So to your question, I think we'll probably see more of these that are the seed level that don't do it for sure, especially if there's no board seat, so no one's pushing them to do that. But net, I think that a more successful company in general will continue on a similar path as history because of that.
Nice. I hope so. It's better for us. I like it. I don't want to be obsolete. I like this asset class.
Yeah, there you go.
Honestly, I think that there's VC wisdom is a bit obviously valuation only increases from rounds to rounds. There is, especially in AI, not a lot of learning from necessarily a pre-seed to a seed to a Series A. And for that reason, well, if you're a multi-stage fund, might as well plow in the 8 million or 4 million early, make it a bigger round then, and then either you own a bigger chunk later by not having had dilution, or it's just gone and then it's a smaller checks in the end. So I do actually think that there's a lot of sense behind that, and the growth of funds has definitely allowed it. And then this fact that we have less learning from round to round. There's so much we could unpack. You mentioned something around you wanting your next round to be on your terms, and there's a bunch we could unpack there. I only want to ask you one question on that, because the frothiness of 21 led a lot of people, a lot of founders to have rounds being done where some of the good old governance parts of VC, which can actually be valuable and value add, kind of went out the window. And some would say that that's exactly what's happening in AI today. I love to ask you, good terms in your next round, is that no one can ever impact me? I can run the company entirely on my own? Or do you see a point to having governance?
I'm sure there's a point to have the governance, and that all makes sense. And it's all in the details rather than, I want like a blank check type thing, right? The way I think about it, if we continue down this path, you don't know if you're going to need dilution again, depending on what you're doing. So if you go down the average path, you're going to do like a Series A, then B, then C, then D, then, IPO or whatever it is. You dilute yourself on every single one of these, right? And so if you go down that mathematical equation, like how much do you dilute yourself? How much do you let yourself be diluted now versus later? And then there's also a question of like, when you dilute yourself, for what reason are you diluting yourself, right? So very transparently, because of the growth that we have and the revenue that we have, like we can raise money from like individuals if we need it. We can do like, not essentially, we can do smaller VCs plus community round plus angels plus whatever and still do an A size round today. Like literally we can do that today. But then in that case, you just have the cash. You don't have necessarily the value add. And then when you think about that, it's like, okay, if I can get the money either way, if I need to do it, who am I going to take the money from and who is going to impose these things on top of you? So it's not the same thing to say if VC A, I'm not going to name anyone, gives you 15, 20, $10 million, they impose whatever governance, but they also give you all these other things versus you can get just general money without having anything imposed, but there's no benefit outside the actual cash. That's also another way to do it. And then everything in between doesn't really make sense to get guardrails imposed without actually any benefits. Because, I mean, there is order of magnitude like 1,000 VC funds in the Series A. Order of magnitude, there's like 1,000. There's like 10,000 VC funds in general. Yeah, and so, right? And so we always talk about like top tier funds or S tier, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. Like there's a lot. Like there's like literally 1,000 funds we can accept checks from right now. So there's a lot, right? And so who do you take it from? And obviously, depending on the value that they can add, and different funds have different value, right? Some of them are like media outlets, some are just like super strong brands, some have like a sales team. There's like different things. Some are like strategic, they can be a huge customer. And so all of these things have trade-offs, and you have to think about all these things. But if none of these funds give you anything significant, but they impose different things, because they certainly do impose, then it doesn't make sense to take that. That being said, I also think it's quite different than the 2021 era, where a lot of the main metric today is run rate, not ARR in the sense of recurring revenue, but it is run rate. And so there's actually cash being collected and made. I'm not sure that in the 2021 era, there was like that much actual cash. It was just like hype and growth and cheap money and all these things. So there is some difference to that. I'm not saying that all these companies will survive.
No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
21 was driven by frothiness in the capital markets. Now it seems to be frothiness in the customer and demand market, if anywhere, which is a good thing.
I mean, they can still die. Like, we're in a hype cycle. If this all dies, then all these customers die, then it all falls down. But it's kind of different in that sense. Like, I feel it's different.
Ivan, Enis, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today.
It was a pleasure.
Well, thanks for having us.
It shall be incredibly exciting to see what comes next, Ivan. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Before we start the show, a quick note. If you're building or running a fund, you know it takes the right partners. At EUVC, we only work with sponsors we truly believe should be part of your tech stack. Please do take a moment to hear about them. And if you do, reach out, mention EUVC. It's the best way you can support what we do. Thank you so much. Starting off, HSBC Innovation Banking. If you're a founder, a scale-up, or a VC, you need a bank that actually understands your world. HSBC Innovation Banking backs innovation globally, from seed to IPO. And if you ask me, a strong banking partner like HSBC belongs in your stack. If your portfolio companies are scaling, they need infrastructure that won't slow them down. Google Cloud Starter Program offers $2,000 to $350,000 in credits, plus technical support to build better and faster. It's a key boost every fund should bring into their ecosystem, and oh my God, are we thankful to be partnering with them. Now, legal is a space you cannot lag on. Legal needs to move at the speed of venture. Goodwin's team has decades of experience with startups and funds. They're trusted at every stage from formation to exit. Goodwin definitely is a legal partner every serious manager should have in their stack. For Luxembourg-based VC, PE, and fund of fund managers, modern funds means going digital. Fundcraft gives you a full-service, digital native platform built for today's European managers. It's a must-have if you're scaling smart. So we all hear about the Middle East. How about you go there? From AI to deep tech to sovereign fund, Skytex in Dubai is where global future of tech gets negotiated. It's not just a conference, it's where East meets West, capital meets innovation, and the bold set the agenda. If you're playing on the global stage, join us going to Skytex this year. If you're gearing up for a next fundraise and want a placement agent who truly understands emerging managers, reach out to C Funds. They're a boutique placement agency that has helped GPs across Europe raise capital from top-tier LPs. We've been on the other side of the table here. They are actually good ones to work with. So I do urge you to go to cfunds.io to go and check them out. And hey, before you go, if you're looking to discover startups, raise capital, or connect with innovation leaders, do check out dealflow.eu, the EU-backed platform bridging founders, VCs, and corporates. There's no better place to find the startups that have received significant funding from the European innovation ecosystem.
This was their finest hour.
Tear down this wall.
It's more than just an alliance. This is a union of values.
Let's start acting.